Hi, my name is Orion Winter, and this is my nature autobiography um, uh, video. So I grew up on Whidbey Island, uh, which is like an hour and a half south from Bellingham. And you probably know where it is. And I grew up on the south part of the island. So the island, it's shaped kind of like when I was a kid, my dad liked to talk about how it was shaped like a peanut or maybe a banana. And I grew up on the south part of it, where there's a lot of woods and not a lot else. I grew up in kind of like a little sort of suburby-ish zone of that. Maybe more like a neighborhood, less like a suburb, because there's no street lights and it's not like, like a big, like, kind of cascading neighborhood. It's a pretty tiny little zone, but it was a neighborhood. But like right outside of the neighborhood, it's like attached to a golf course that wasn't a golf course when we moved in, and it became a golf course, or it was a golf course that was like a defunct one. So I spent a lot of time kind of out on that sort of weird green, open, sort of, I don't know, man-made stuff. And the golf course was shut down, though. So it was kind of, they would mow it sometimes, but it was generally like really long grass, and there were a bunch of, dragonflies, and there's like a total ecosystem happening in that really long grass. But right outside of that was, just like tons of little forest patches, or like, straight up larger forest areas. And I think, so Whidbey has a Navy base on it, and a lot of the island was logged at some point. So there's not really a lot of very old trees. So the forests are kind of like full of these really long, spindly things. And it's super pretty. I went hiking a lot growing up. That was like a big thing that my mom liked to do. I guess when I say a lot, it's more like as much as my mom could push me and my sister out of the house. We spent a lot of time outside either way, in the backyard area. My mom is like a super intensive, I don't know, she's got like a total passion for making a space really beautiful and kind of like natural. So like, I don't know, nature-y. We had a big willow tree in the backyard, and there's a little pond, and she planted the tree and made the pond with my dad. And then there's a bunch of flowers on, like, there's this little hill, and there's a swing set up there. And I spent a lot of time out there. And then nearby there were ponds where me and my sister would go to catch frogs, and if you got really lucky you could find a toad. And sometimes you could get a salamander too, and you always knew those were there because there were little bubbles that would come up, and you could, if you had your net and you made like a real swipe at it with the net, you could get a salamander. And we had a couple salamanders for a while that lived in our neighbor's. She had a little pond that she had koi in. They were like really kind of tiny koi, like they weren't very old, and the salamanders ate them. Maybe the salamanders didn't eat them. Maybe the salamanders just mysteriously were correlated with mass koi destruction. I'm not sure. We would go hiking out in, I would say pretty similar climate-wise forests to a lot of Bellingham's forests. But lots of madrones kind of sprinkled in too in a lot of areas. And I'm sure there's a bunch of other, kind of tiny differences, but was really, it's really pretty out there. There's a lot of cool places to go. Me and my partner recently found one of the forests on Whidbey is really good for finding chanterelles, and I had never found a chanterelle before. Maybe I had, but I didn't know what it was before, and I was super excited about that. And that area has thicker, bigger trees, but I think they were still probably logged and then just replanted less recently. I'm not entirely sure how that works, if there's like a replanting effort that happens, or if the forests just kind of return on their own. It's sort of an uncontrolled thing. I don't know. And we spent a lot of time on beaches and at parks. You know, I was always really into catching things. I liked catching bees in jars, and I'd see how many bees I could get in a jar in the backyard, and you know, I'd catch dragonflies sometimes, and that was always crazy. And I liked going fishing with my dad a little bit, but the thing with fishing is it's less of an active hunt. At least that's how it felt. It felt more like I was doing a lot of sitting. And that was not as fun for my, you know, little 7-year-old brain. And well, while I you know, I don't know, yeah. And we would go camping every year out to Claylock which is like in the Hoh Rainforest, or I guess it's right, well, I think it's in it. It's like, I don't know, super rainy, you know, it's by Forks on the, you know, you got the little peninsula, little Washington. I'm not sure if this is going to be mirrored when I'm done filming it, so it might look like this or it might look like this. I guess that depends. You know, it's kind of up near the corner up there. I guess the biggest, I mean, that area is like a really different climate than Whidbey in a lot of ways. Like on Whidbey, the beaches, a lot of them are very rocky, and you know, maybe they're sandy, but it's kind of like a coarser sand, whereas out at Claylock and out in that area, it's a lot more like really fine sand, and yeah, you know, anyway. And I loved being out there and running around in the forest with my sister and, you know, my cousins and my aunt's boyfriend. He was really cool. And yeah, we go back there every year. And so that was a big part of, you know, sort of my nature experience growing up. Yeah, I think the animals out there are a lot more subtle, right? There's a lot of birds, and there's a lot of bird, I mean, you know, species overlap between Whidbey and out there, but there's, you know, definitely like the deer are harder to find out there. Whidbey has a ton of deer and a ton of rabbits, and at some point, all of the bears that were on Whidbey got like hunted out, and like, or I would guess they were probably killed. I don't think that they went to the trouble of relocating the bears. But so because of that, there's not a lot of predators, and so there's like these crazy overpopulations that you get of, you know, like prey species of animals, and so that's a really fun part of Whidbey, is you can always find like a bunch of creatures running around, but Claylock is a little yeah, I don't know. It's way easier to find an anemone, I think, than deer out there, because you know where the anemones are going to be. And yeah, I don't know. I love the way that I feel when I'm outside. I love sort of the opportunity that it gives me for kind of pulling away from maybe a lot of sort of, I don't know, society stuff, you know. You can kind of get to be a creature among other creatures in a way that when I'm in a car or when I'm in a house or when I'm in a grocery store, I don't feel. And And so I think that's, yeah, just a really great part of that experience. And now I'm at 10 minutes. I talked for 10 minutes. Cool. Okay. Yep.